Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to yet another edition of Africa Discourse. I am Wilson Omasho. Yes, 10 years ago, or approximately a decade, it was all about the Arab Spring when a man got up one morning in Tunisia. He looked up, looked down, looked at the situation around him, looked at his family. He was like, I can't take this anymore. He took gasoline, poured it over himself, set himself ablaze, and that was how the Arab Spring started. Ben Ali, the president then of Tunisia, was chased out of office from Tunisia, went to Egypt, and so on and so forth. It got to Syria, but Syria is like Al-Assad was like, it's not going to happen in Syria. The war is still on, raging right now, trying to settle. But in African sphere, it hit Egypt hard. Tunisia also. What about Gaddafi? Yeah. But think about it. 10 years later, the same thing that led to the Arab Spring is still very much on the ground in Tunisia. A young man also did the same thing that that other guy did, set himself ablaze. Why? Unemployment, bad governance. We're talking about people not being satisfied also with the way the police are carrying out their activities in Tunisia. In the middle of this month, New Year, it was one protest after the other, over 1,000 protesters arrested, and Michichi is like, everybody stay calm. Michichi is the prime minister right now of Tunisia, and they're not comparing Michichi to Ben Ali. What in the world is going on? Is this going to be another touch also for a second phase of what you call a second wave of the Arab Spring? Can this be quelled? All these and more will take a look at today's installment of Africa Discourse. With me here in the studio, I have a reverend gentleman, political analyst. Join me to welcome Reverend Humphrey Aregano. Reverend, welcome to Africa Discourse.
Beautiful afternoon to you and everyone. Thank you.
All right. You get to hear once a journalist, always a journalist. And of course, one time also president of a Scout Rights in Nigeria, an entrepreneur, a politician. Join me to welcome Honorable Agarasi Idubo. Welcome to Africa Discourse.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your coming.
Thank you very much.
All right. Here we are. Almost a decade ago, Tunisia experienced what is happening right now, where you see people coming out in mass to say enough is enough. Enough to bad governance, enough to unemployment, enough of police brutality. We need a change. No matter how they're carrying it out right now, it's like it's turning so violent and bloody. Reverend, what do you have to say about this?
Well, to me, it's a sad commentary that 10 years after a rise of people's revolt against what they call bad governance and dictatorship, we are still in the same situation. And that shows to me, and I've been looking at issues, is that there's a difference between a mob action and a protest with design and desire. Most of the protests in Africa do not have a template of what is needed and how it should be done. You're just angry against somebody, you're angry against you, and you pour your anger against that person without asking yourself, how do I replace? You know, let me borrow from the Bible. The Bible says when a demon leaves somebody, he goes about hunting on dry land. And when he cannot find a space, he comes back with 7 more deadly ones. And they come, and the end of that person is worse than the beginning. I believe that sometimes that's what we do, especially the young ones. They do not sit down to ask themselves, how do we replace this? Because if you look at Tunisia, the politicians that have been raised are still the same politicians who were there when Ben Ali was there. They do not have a different culture. They do not have a different political templates. So where are the young ones on the streets? What is their political template to say this is what we need to do? If they do not have that, then of course they will continually be on the streets. And of course, I keep also saying to myself that the police and the army that become so brutal with the youth who are agitating, they forgot that they are part of the society. Some of their families and relations are a part of that youth mob because they live in the same country. So they should temper some reasoning and to say, how do we find the solution? Because the same situation they are in. For sometimes the police and the army officers are worse off with politicians than with the mob they are trying to kill on behalf of the politicians, because they do the same thing. So I want to believe that it's a time to sit down. Mob action has never yielded a good result. So if you did not use it 10 years ago, why do you believe it will give you a new thing now? What difference have you made? And what difference is your uprising now than the one you did 10 years ago? Egypt has not recovered, the same thing. So we need to, it also shows that the educational system of Africa is very faulty. Because the universities and the polytechnics are supposed to be engine rooms for molding leaders of tomorrow. So if they cannot mold that, it means our educational system has a basic fundamental problem that needs to be solved for there to be a new rethinking for people, because you cannot give what you don't have. How much of leadership development do we have in Africa? How much of thinking do we bring into things that enables the young ones to? Because they're always talking about, the internet has made it worse for the youths. They're always thinking of money, they're always thinking of material things. They're not thinking of how to build systems and structures that will help.
I'll come back to you shortly. You raised two selling points. You talked about the youth overreacting in a way. They didn't take out time to be patient enough to build a particular system that will favor them. I also hit the blame also on the internet because of the desire, how would I put it, desire of the youth to really get rich quick. But can you liken that to what is going on right now in Tunisia, Honorable Agara Seidu? The youths, are they really overreacting, or they are reacting to what is on the ground right now, talking about the current state of the nation, when we're figuring out what is really happening in Tunisia?
Yeah, very honestly, I feel differently about it, because the Tunisian youths, and not even your youths now, it's a mass protest. There are some old persons there. One of those that was shot is a 65-year-old man. Yeah. And 65-year-old man is not a young person. When people protest, in 2011, the protest yielded results. It did. And it could yield result now, because I think it's coordinated. Most of the persons protesting now, I mean, it's clear, they're protesting about, or protesting against bad governance. I mean, the unemployment rate has risen by 8%. Yeah. The economy has worsened. There's a downturn of about 11.5%. Poverty has also increased. So, very honestly, the people are protesting. I think it's coordinated. And they believe that the consistent protest can also bring down the government. But I agree with my brother. When you bring down a government, what do you want to do thereafter? The same persons you are bringing down will come out in another form to take over. But I look at a system. Tunisia has a population of 11.9 million. And it is said that 6 million are young persons. So if 6 million are young persons, so what will these 6 million people do differently? It's not enough to protest and bring down a government. Having brought down the government, what is your own agenda? Do you intend to bring some young persons who you believe can offer leadership? Because the real problem of Tunisia and Africa is leadership. Leadership, because most times you find persons who have not gone through leadership training. We talked about leadership just now. The one thing that people have forgotten, if you say the young persons are leaders of tomorrow, have you prepared them for tomorrow? I mean, if you say, I'm going to lead you tomorrow, you must prepare me today for tomorrow. And what we find is that nobody cares about preparing people for leadership. And that has always become, most people just come into leadership without being prepared for leadership. And that's why we are where we are. In Tunisia, for instance, when the 2011 protest, when that one happened for about 20, 30 days, people thought that would finally put paid to bad governance. But it did not, because they still had the military blood in them. Most of those persons who, I'm going to say is not a good person, and you throw him away. Have you thought about bringing a Wilson who you think can do better? It's not just bringing one Wilson, a Wilson who you think or you believe can do better, not just because his name is Wilson. Have you tried to look at him? If we bring in Wilson, can he take us to where we want to get to? So I just believe that what we need in Africa is a situation whereby it's not the issue of change for change. It should be change for progress. And because there has been problem in Tunisia over time, progress has eluded them. If a government has come, a government that believes in the people, and there have been, Tunisian government is not one government, they are highly independent, even though it's a sovereign nation, but they are not dependent. They are not independent. And that is why they still have this problem. There is no way, if you look at a system whereby, in 2014, after the 2011 protest,
yes,
they came with a constitution. And you cannot put two systems together, parliamentary and presidential. Merge them in one system. It's not possible. You must choose one of the two. If you think you can play the two together, then you're going to create more crisis, because to understand the difference becomes difficult. So that's why I think they on their own created for themselves problems by trying to merge two very major forms of government together.
All right, I will come back to you now. He raised 2 points. He talked about the emergence of a constitution that gave the government the right to operate through system of government. He said that was the beginning of all this problem. He also said he didn't really blame the youths for, if you take a look at the unemployment rate, inflation rate, you just name it, that is enough for one to really get angry, because that was the reason why they fought against Ben Ali government in 2011. Looking at it from this angle, don't you think that the youths, and of course, not all of them are youths, though we have some persons that are of age also among the protesters. I don't think they have a point in what they are really protesting for. Give us good governance, no matter how many times you come out to protest, unless you listen to us, the protest continues.
You see, I believe that they have a point. The point is, there's bad governance, which has generated big unemployment for the youths, Timmy youths, who are trying to make life. But the reason why I'm putting my blame on the youths, that, like you said, if out of 11 million, you are 6 million, it means you have the voting power. The government that is now, if you go and look at the electoral practices and all, you find that most of the youth voted for these persons. So they created problems for themselves by voting people who do not have what they even, that's why I say, they didn't have a template. They don't, I'm not sure they have a guiding principle on which to say, this is where we are going. This is the document that we are saying to our hands, these are our demands, these are what we want to do. Who do we put into this place? You know, we cannot, in this century where knowledge is everywhere, where internet has made the place a global village, so you can look at other governments, other countries, and see what do we pick from here. Like you said, you cannot merge two governmental practices together and think that it will work. It's not going to work. Have you really studied it? You know, I said some time ago that Nigeria borrowed presidential system, but they do not understand what presidential system is all about. Because the basic elements of presidential system in America does not exist in Nigeria. The same thing that the Tunisians have done. They try to merge presidential and parliamentary. And they have not asked themselves, what are we talking about? How do you merge two fighting forces together and expect it to grow? It doesn't take that. So they should decide what kind of government they want, first of all. And the government should be understood. by everybody, to not just a government. If you are going through a political system, you must overhaul the party system. Because right now, just like you have in every African country, politicians, old politicians govern the parties. They determine, and they have not changed their way of thinking. They are still in their analog stage. So when youths who are in that digital state are talking, they are talking at opposite ends. So the youth have to ask themselves, can't they form political parties that will give them environment or where they are going to make a choice? Because I'm not sure you have independent candidates in Tunisia, just like we don't have in Nigeria. If that is the case, let them form a new political party and contest election and let them go into these environments and invest in it. But we also find that, like what I said, the educational system of Africa has not equipped the youth for their leadership role tomorrow. You see, leadership, Africa is leadership by accident.
Leadership by accident. Could you please explain that phrase?
You know, that's because the leaders are just brought up either by when the older ones feel that they are being harassed by the children. They just pick somebody who is not prepared, who asks on their behalf. He's just there, but taking orders and instructions from the older people from behind. And that creates more problem. Because the person who is there does not really think and understand and process thoughts for those that are supposed to be there. Then if you choose a president, you can choose one president, but what are the members of the parliament? Who are they? How qualified are they? How motivated to your thoughts are they? Because they are the ones that will make sure that the president does what he needs to do. And if, look, I keep referring to when I'm referring to all these things. Look at Nigeria, for instance. We talk about change those days. Very recently, our profile of corruption has increased. We are now more deep in corruption.
And the thing is that the federal government said they don't agree with that.
Yes,
you know, reports.
If they said they agreed,
International,
if they said
they don't agree with it.
If they said they agreed, I would have been very shocked.
That's the same they believed before.
Yeah, they believed when they told the other government we are very corrupt. They believed it. The same people now say you are corrupt, say you don't believe. So that's Africa. That's what I'm saying. The youth need to have a definitive process of taking over. Look at, you know, in Australia, that you have young people of 35 being prime minister and minister. They're doing something different. So Africa we need to wake up to let them take the things by their own hands and begin to drive it. If you still rely on the old politicians, you are going to have the same situation. They don't have a different agenda at all.
Yeah.
All right. Honorable, you heard him. He agreed with your point, like trying to make system of government together that are part, so to speak, that are totally different, so to speak, is part of the problems they are having right now in Tunisia. But is it a crime to protest that you don't like what is really going on? No. We're talking about over 1,000 persons right now arrested. And the continuation of the protest also is for the government to release those that have been arrested. Is it a crime?
No, I think you listened to me earlier.
Yes.
It's not a crime. I mean, protest is a normal part of, you know, people's development. Yeah. But let me say this to you very quietly. You have a right to protest if you don't like a system. But I agree with him. The protest must be definitive. I mean, you must have a goal. It's not just protesting. Hey, you must have a goal.
But they have a goal in this protest.
The goal is just to bring down government. Yes, fine. After bringing down government, what happens? He made a point. You have over 60% of the population are young persons. If you bring down government, what is your own plan? What do you want to do? The only area I disagree with him, they cannot go and form a party because it's expensive to form a party. They can come into existing parties. The young persons can come and take over existing parties. Like in Nigeria, for instance, either the PDP or the APC, just come and take over.
The young men had money. Look at the cars they buy.
That is true, but you see,
it's a miss of direction.
They get misdirected. I agree with you.
Not all young men have money, please.
No, but some have.
But some have.
Okay.
I agree with you. Business entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Some have, but you see, at times you have money to run a party, but you need structure.
Yes.
So the structure may not be there. You could have all the money on earth, but the money does not speak for itself. So that is where I think those young men who have money can come into the major parties come in full force. And once, I've always said this here, when I was the president of Youth of Nigeria, I was privileged to be at the conference to determine how political parties were run. And I was privileged to tell people that we don't want youth wings in political parties. Because the youth wings are like the toggery arm of government. So we said, I moved at that time that we can move into parties and determine how the parties will run. And that was why, if you remember, the NRC and the SDP didn't have youth wings. Because what we have now as youth wings is the toggery arm of the party. So the young persons can move into this party with their money. There are structures already. So they can move in and determine the direction of leadership. But again, most young persons have allowed themselves to be used as pawns on the chessboard, which is not also right. So I look forward to a system whereby the youth of this country, or even Tunisia now, can move in, have one protest. You are protesting, you're on the street. 1,005 people are protesting. They have killed 15. They have killed 15 of them. And one of them is a 65-year-old man. And they will kill more. They will kill more. And by the time they kill more, it will get to a point others will run away. That is the belief. But I think when you consistently protest and you have a vision, a direction, then you can teach yourself, okay, fine. If we remove this government, we look forward to a system whereby we can bring my brother Bishop Arigan. Because he's time-tested. We have looked at his antecedents. We have studied him. We understand his thinking. We believe that he's a man who's fit and proper to take us from here to the next level. So these are issues that I think we must tell ourselves that we must not continuously pull down governments without alternatives. So I want to say to you, my dear brother, in Tunisia now, Tunisia is not a very poor country. Note that. It's not a very poor country. Poverty has come because of bad governance. Tunisia, the average salary of a Tunisian is $275.
$275?
And that's a lot of money.
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
I will come back to you shortly because we want to go for a break. When we return, we're going to be talking more about what is happening in Tunisia. If the minimum wage, so to speak, is $475, why are they protesting? Are things really going from bad to worse? We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Well, you just saw the news flash to update you on what is happening in our country, in our state, in our local government. If you just joined us, this is Africa Discourse. We are taking a look at the uprising right now in Tunisia, where over 1,000 persons have been arrested. And of course, the protest is not abating. It's still gathering momentum. 15 dead already, but they are still pressing for the removal of the government on the ground, saying no to bad governance, saying no to police brutality, saying no to high unemployment rate, saying no to anything that Mechichim stands for. Yeah, he's the prime minister, and they are angry in the street of Tunisia, saying enough is enough. This thing happened in 2011. 2014, there was a constitutional amendment, and 6 years later, well, I say 7 years later, after the constitutional amendment, they're still out there in the streets. Reverend,
yes.
The protest rages on.
Yes, the protest rages on.
He raised the point saying that they're not doing badly because he talked about the minimum wage, $275. But from what they are saying, they can hardly provide for their families.
Yes, the irony in the African context is that it's not because we really don't have resources. It's mismanagement and greed of politicians who have refused to do the needful. They refuse to create avenues and make environments conducive for the average individual to be able to make progress. And I also said, our education is also not giving us the basis of good life. You are giving people papers without giving them knowledge and thoughts of what they need to do. So when people are protesting, people are protesting out of anger. You know, when you are angry, you are not coordinated in the things you do. Anger, most of the time, protest goes to destruction. and deaths. What the government will do, rather than give people hope, they try to rebuild what they have destroyed already. And that in itself is a setback. So when you are protesting, there are different ways to protest. You protest, I keep saying to people, long protests don't yield results. Because no government wants to see himself being disgraced. None, you know. So you also have to have some dignity add to it. Once you are asking somebody, so you are not doing something, give the person also some benefits in the matter. If it is to tender your demands before Parliament and before they say, these are, if within these days we've come here to protest, to bring attention to our demands, these are our demands. We give you 1 week or 2 months to look into our demands. If you don't meet the demands, we are coming back. That gives a window of opportunity for both sides to relax. Now you can't talk to a mob. Even if a president wants to speak here now, they may stone him to death. He can't talk to them. So the act condition has, those are the leaders of the protest must have a time to be able to meet with them. Yeah. And say, this is what we need, this is how we need it. If not, then we are coming back. Then they know that they have done their work. The police also should not be so brutal. They should be trained, and these are the problems. Most of our African policemen are not trained to talk with humans, even with anger. You're not supposed to be angry when they are angry.
But these are anti-riot policemen. You see them with their shields. They are well kitted to repel any form of attack. Because according to them, the protesters are attacking them, so they need to defend themselves.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They have all the gadgets. So even if the man is trained, the man of protest doesn't have gun. All he may have is a rock. All he may have is a stick, which is not as deadly as the gun you are holding. This thing you are holding. Okay. And instead of them to even use tear gas, you use live bullets. For what does that mean? You know, you are not against an enemy. They are Tunisians.
All right.
You know, and this is the problem with African presidents. They prefer to arm police and arm soldiers against civilians, and yet they can't give civilians what they are looking for.
All right, it's like you have a protest to the point he raised.
No, you were saying that they were protesting against the military. They're not protesting against the police. They are protesting. Police came to quell. They are not protesting against the police.
Because among what they are clamoring for is stop police brutality.
Yes.
So they say that also.
Is government also protesting too?
The police came to quell, and in quelling they became brutal.
Yes.
They became brutal. I agree with him that protests most times don't yield desired results. Tunisia has 3 major sources of income: oil, agriculture, and tourism. They have destroyed tourism. I mean, you are protesting and you are destroying your economy. I mean, how do you expect government to now? I mean, because I just believe, I don't like destructive protests. I mean, you are protesting, fine. I've seen protests in some civilized climes. You just walk on the street, it's guided, you make your points, you deliver messages, you sit down in squares, you talk, you express your views. But in Africa, you destroy facilities. I mean, that to me is totally unacceptable. They have crippled their third leg. Tourism. Most of their tourist attractions have been destroyed because of protest. So for me, it's a very unguided protest. And one thing I always tell protesters who I know, when you destroy facilities of government, they will be rebuilt. Not with the governor's money or the president's money, but with your own money. Money that would have been used for other things will now be deployed to now maintain those things you destroy. So for me, I think we need to ask ourselves, what do we want? If you are destructive in your protest, then of course, like he said, no government, and I say no government, will sit down and watch people destroy facilities. Even if you have a right to protest, even if your protest is genuine, but they are destroying facilities, they have a right or duty to protect those facilities. And in the process, the man says, if you do anyhow, you see anyhow. Because now...
And that's what protesters don't like. If you do anyhow, you say anyhow. Because
So-
it may lead to loss of life.
No, of course. And the lives are yours. One thing I always tell people, life once lost, once lost, Pam, is definitive. It's the end. So you must guide yourself. Don't facilities are not meant to be destroyed. They are not the issues at stake. If you are angry, don't walk to a facility and destroy it. Like in Lagos, for instance, you destroyed buses. Now Lagosians are suffering in Lagos because no buses. Now they have to start to look for how to get back to work because you have destroyed over 200 buses. Are the buses the issue? So these are issues. I keep telling people, if you are aggrieved, oh fine, you can walk. You can agonize yourselves. Police you can be guided by police. Just walk, protest, sit down in squares. Let them see you protesting. You can sit down, aggrieved, even for 1 week, 1 month. Every morning you come there, sit down. I've seen that kind of protest before. Every morning you come there and sit down. They will see you as protesting, not when you become violent.
But I'm saying that side of protest, talking about coming and sitting down in Africa, doesn't have any impact.
Yes.
If you're looking at you as if you're wasting your time.
No, but they will see you as protesting.
Yeah.
No, they're just seated looking there.
No, they're not just sitting looking down.
sideways.
While they are sitting, they place their demands.
Yes.
And those involved are looking at it, and so that they invite the leaders of the protesters. It's okay, because he cannot be talking to a mob.
Like I said, with the president just come now, I'm talking to, they'll stone him. So these are issues, and let me tell you, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I was doing something somewhere, and some youth just came and they were protesting, 15 of them. And I came there and said, I can't talk to all of you. Appoint 1 or 2 persons that can come and talk with me. They now had issues.
Who to trust?
They now had issues.
What do we say?
Who do we now send to go and talk?
So
So even among themselves.
it will not come back to the same door.
You know? So these are issues we must
Okay, now if you take a look at the countries in Africa that really experienced the Arab Spring, according to a report, majority of them, they are not the same. Take a look at Egypt. According to a report, many of them saying that our Sisi is high-handed, so to speak. According to some report, he is oppressive. Don't forget what led to the, how would I put it now, Austin of Hosni Mubarak, where Morsi came into play. It was the people saying, no, we don't want you. Now we have our Sisi there. The same story. Though the Arabs didn't really catch fire, so to speak, in Syria, it caused war there, but the man is still there. Do you see this how would I put it now, reinvented, so to speak, the Arab Spring, knowing fully well that some countries really went through that phase and they are not really better off?
I'm not seeing a situation of that magnitude. But you see, one of the things that Africans also should appreciate is that most African countries, leaders for very, very specific, are not totally independent. They are dependent on some external help and factors. For instance, the oil they have. There are countries who buy their oil, and they have to have some allegiance. Their elections and possibly those who are appointed also have backings from external forces. It is very obvious. And those are things that the youth or the people should begin to talk about. Who are these people? Because if you don't study your environment to know what is happening, you may be leading a blind riot, and that becomes a problem. Because most of those who have invested in their businesses, who are external, who want to guide it. And they will do everything within their resources to make sure that those who are in leadership that favors them remains. And these are things, that's why it is good to have a study. It is good to have an understanding. And it is good to state what you are looking for and be very precise over time. 10 years should have been a good time for them to have studied, to say, okay, this is where we are going. But you have to ask them, had there been any study?
But they're not getting any result. That is why the youths are angry. That's why many of them, they are upset.
The youths themselves.
After the Arab Spring, still situation remained the same. According to some of them, it's worse off.
Yes, it's worse off because they did not do anything to make it better. You see, nobody gives you anything. You need to look for how to get it. what has the youth done? What proposal? I keep saying that. What proposal do they have on board? But when they were electing people, what were the proposals they put on board that they bought, that they gave them that power to do the election? You elected people based on your understanding. So if you didn't, and you elected people who have no business with you, and that's what you are reaping. Now they are even doing it. What is their proposal? What are they talking about? How are they going to go through it? Who are the leaders? Have they studied these younger generations? Any man who says he's a leader, what kind of leadership does he have? Ability. These are some of the things. Yeah. Because anybody can shout. Because I was reading, there's one of the ladies who is, what they say is one of the leading politicians, but was also part of Ben Ali's government. Sure. What they are saying right now, they're seeing her. That's what they are saying. You are saying you're seeing her. You have to begin to ask yourself questions, because politicians can give you a different face just because they are looking toward to get power.
But I am. I'm a politician.
Most people, have you ever seen to election? You are a politician, you know this thing. But you know what I'm talking about. That's why you find that when politicians, when they come to power, they forget even about the party that brought them in. And they take some people along with themselves who can do something with them for what they're looking for. And they begin to create a new thought. That sometimes even worse. That was happening in Egypt. You're talking of a man who Mubarak was high-handed. Assisi is more high-handed than any of the oppressive laws he has made against journalists and all of them. But here we are. So how is the youth? I keep talking about you because they are leaders of tomorrow.
I'll agree with you.
How are they preparing to remove Assisi, for instance? It's not by violence, it's not by right. They go by election.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that are used to rig election.
Okay.
They are the ones that are used to disturb the situation. Why would they allow themselves to destroy the future they are trying to talk about?
All right. Why would they allow themselves to destroy the future they are trying to talk about? It's all about reenacting the Arab Spring. It started with Tunisia, and of course it got to Egypt. In the case of Libya, you and I know the story behind the death of Gaddafi is all part of the Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring is a product of violence.
Yes, product of violence, but it started from Tunisia.
Yes.
Now, do you see it spreading? Because he said no, but what do you feel about it?
The Arab Spring is a product of violence. Like you mentioned, the guy who decided to
set himself ablaze.
He didn't just do that because he thought it should be a martyr. The man said, I've complained to Agarese, I've complained to Wilson, I've complained to Bishop Arega. Nobody's listening to me. And I have a family to maintain. I work hard, people shortchange me, they impose taxes. We try to explain, they won't listen. So the only option was to just say, let me not leave this world. But I haven't said all of this. Between 2011 and now, like my brother said, they've had 2 elections in Tunisia. And if they have 60% young persons, why wouldn't they have chosen persons in parliament that will represent them enough? In 2011, they had the problem of forming government because the major party had just a quarter of parliament. They were now trying to juggle to make up a number for a simple majority. Okay, fine. 2 elections gone down the line. Why won't these protesters, why wouldn't they have come together to say, gentlemen, now we must, okay, 2011 we couldn't, but now we could change government. So at times I look at young persons and I wonder, can we entrust leadership to these young persons?
And some are saying, yes, you should entrust it to them, that they're ready to lead.
No, they're not.
And they're blaming the elderly that they don't want to give way.
Listen,
that's what they're doing right now.
Listen,
and that's what they're saying.
No, you have a right with your number to change the system. Don't allow yourself to be used to disorganize the system. If the use of Nigeria, for instance, choose to change government and they come together, I disagree with forming a new party, but go into this existing party.
Why do you disagree with forming a new party?
They cannot fund.
Why do you disagree?
But
you said some of these youths, they have the financial backing.
No,
so why can't they form their own party?
Bring that finance to a structure, and use the structure to take over government.
You're talking like a politician right now.
It's not easy for a young man to uproot an old man from his house.
No, see how it goes. You made a point that this old man, they look at young men to use as pawns, to use to achieve objectives. If these young men are saying, no, sorry, we also want to be part of this system. We don't want to be used. We want to also call the shots. And as soon as young persons refuse to be used, just refuse. I mean, every young person in Nigeria is fit to be, if you are of age, there are age, age limits. So you can be also 35. You can be anything in Nigeria. So we have so many young Nigerians who are well grounded. At 35, they could hold any position. So for me, if the youth of Nigeria just come together and say, gentlemen, we have decided with our population, with our members, to take over governance or to bring to bear somebody we think we believe in. And they will achieve it. But most young persons, they choose to be subservient. They choose to play second fiddles. They choose to just get money for now and forget of tomorrow. Forget about tomorrow. So for me, I implore young persons to come, get organized, get reconscientized, get more focused, and get together and lead yourselves. In Tunisia, for instance, let me tell you, there was a rally in December. But some young persons, there were 520 young men that came together. They were said to be a group of young persons who are thinking that they call them same thought. Same thought. They came together. They had a meeting in December. After the meeting, some of them, what they decided to do, from there, some of them went to tell the president. So their next meeting, when they adjourned for the next meeting, the president had already infiltrated and divided them. So we need to have, a concerted, effort where young persons will believe in themselves and be able to say to themselves, we are agreeing to do something. We believe that we can trust each other. All right. And if we can trust each other, then now we can go ahead, because once you don't trust yourselves, there's nothing you can do.
So you can do. Okay. As we are still talking, the protest there is still going on strongly in Tunisia. Over 6,000 persons came out to protest against the government, and over 1,000 have been arrested. As at last count, 15 already they've lost their life in that protest. What do you think should be the way forward as we're about to commence our descent on this program? What do you think should be the way forward? Because they are still protesting. Nobody wants to shit his or her sword. They are just there. You have to do something. You must listen to us. The government says, no, you're getting more and more violence. We have to use force. What do you think should be the pathway to peace?
Well, there is always said that there is no war that has ever succeeded without a round table conference. After the war, you are still going to sit down. So I will appreciate that they shouldn't let more lives to be lost, because those one will never come back. Two, there shouldn't be destructions, because it's part of your life. If you destroy what you are going to use as a means to get where you are going to, then you are injuring yourself. So they need to sit back. They've protested for many days. They can sit back to say, okay, we are retreating to give the government. Like I keep saying, they should put their demands on the table. It's okay, we are retreating. Now we have gotten your attention. We put our demands on the table. We'll give you a period of time for you to address the issues and address us and see where we are going. If nothing happens, because the government is trying to put himself to, the Prime Minister is trying to put his government to order in Parliament, they should give him time, because I keep saying, no government is going to just allow you chase him away just like we did with the other person before. And if they didn't use result, if you push him out and didn't use result, even if you push this one out without an agenda, it's not going to yield any result. So they must think of a different approach to get their views heard and get what they are looking for.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Honorable, briefly.
Yeah, you see, Tunisia is Tunisia is a developing country, but also rich. Yes. Because Nigeria, we say we live on less than $1 per day. In Tunisia, is $2.58. Tunisia. In Tunisia, the GDP has dropped. It has dropped. Unemployment has risen. And we're here to get to about 20% between now and the end of the year. But the president is not also a bad person. The president is also trying to prevail on the police or on the forces to say, don't kill these people.
Yeah.
Use bullets that will not kill them. You know? He's trying to say that. But, like my brother said, there is no government that will watch you destroy facilities and just think you are protesting. So I just believe that young persons can go ahead. You can protest. One governor, look, I won't mention his name. Here, there was going to be a strike. And they were forcing him, we are going on strike. We must go on strike. We must go on strike. So they went to see the man. The man got tired of all of them. He said, okay, fine. You can go on strike, but don't stay too long.
Don't stay too long.
So for me, I just believe that when you protest for too long, you lose the meaning of the protest. Okay. You can protest to register, a point.
Yeah.
But if you protest for too long, you will have just lost the reason for your protest.
Much.
So I want to advise the Tunisian young persons or those who are protesting to get refocused. You can protest without destroying facilities. Because once you destroy facilities, you lose ground. And that becomes a little bit difficult.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Some of the opinion that this may just be a kind of a second wave, so to speak, of the Arab Spring, but from what they said in the studio, it may not lead to that. Remember the Arab Spring? It happened 2011, where a protest from Tunisia, occasioned by a young man setting himself ablaze. Yeah, and it just like caught fire. The Arab Spring was like in trouble. And today they've not recovered. Check the countries that got involved in that Arab Spring. They've not recovered. And Tunisia right now is still coming out protesting about bad governance, unemployment, police brutality. You just name it. Peace should be our watchword. See you tomorrow, God willing, on International Forum. Bye for now.